Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Unpontificated. My name is Vuyo. In this episode, we're going to be looking at an interview that Global News did with a international international relations expert, Oriel Braun, and this is regarding the announcement that Mark Carney made that Canada is going to recognize Palestine as a state. Now, on a just kind of a note there, I have no problem with recognizing Palestine as a state, but Mark Carney, in all his wisdom, made a mistake in my mind in making this announcement. One, he made it before August 1st, which was the Trump deadline for getting a deal done. And so all that did was make Trump angry, a little perturbed. And then, of course, he announces a 35% tariff from the 25 that we had. Now it's up to 35 on all the non-CUSMA products going into the US. I don't know why he made the announcement then, which was just dumb. And second, what did this announcement, the fact that he's going to make this announcement at the UN General Assembly in September, does that help the Palestinian people at all? That does help the Israeli people at all. Let's not forget that Israel is our ally. So what does saying that you're going to do this do for anyone? It does nothing, in my mind. But listen to what Oriel Braun says about this announcement. And I agree with much of what he says. But let's take a listen.
Canada is making a significant shift in foreign policy, with the Prime Minister revealing plans to formally recognize a Palestinian state during the upcoming UN General Assembly. The announcement has sparked strong reactions at home and abroad, drawing responses from Canadians and global leaders alike. International relations expert Oriel Braun joins us now to discuss this further. Thank you for being here, Oriel.
Thank you.
So how do you interpret Canada's move? Is this a principled stand or a strategic effort to pressure Israel over Gaza?
The Prime Minister portrays this as something that is meant to help the peace process, that is going to help the people in Gaza and the West Bank. And this may be his intention, but the results might be very, very different, unfortunately, because it is sadly unlikely to benefit the Palestinian people or the Israelis. This is a very complex situation that is not easily amenable to some political slogan or to some easy solution. And when the Prime Minister states that he is going to recognize a Palestinian state in September, predicated, and he emphasized this is predicated on a commitment from the Palestinian Authority to free elections, to a demilitarized state, and so on, that, in a sense, makes this quest not only questionable, but it also raises certain red flags as to this.
Yeah, one thing to, I guess, remember is that it's the Palestinian Authority led by Mahmoud Abbas that most of the major democracies basically deal with. It's a Palestinian Authority that they recognize as being the representative of the Palestinian people, not Hamas. So the Palestinian Authority is mainly in the West Bank. That's where they are. And Hamas is running Gaza. But the plan is, if you're going to recognize the Palestinian Authority as the representative of the Palestinian people, that's who they're dealing with. And that's why you'll see Oriel Braun mentioning the PA, Mahmoud Abbas, and not Hamas. Hamas is a terrorist organization that most democracies do not deal with at all.
Sincerity of the effort, because these are not real conditions. This is just a promissory note that he uses as something that would justify this early kind of recognition, which doesn't really fulfill the criteria of the Montevideo Convention on the Recognition of States.
Here's the Montevideo Convention that Oriel Braun was talking about. The Montevideo Convention Officially, the Montevideo Convention on the Rights and Duties of States is a treaty signed in 1933 that outlines the criteria for statehood under international law. It establishes that a state, as a person of international law, should possess these four items: a defined territory, a permanent population, a government, and the capacity to enter into relations with other states. The purpose, the convention aims to define the fundamental characteristics of a state in the international legal system. So the key provisions of the statehood criteria, it specifies the four key elements mentioned above. In other words, defined territory, permanent population, a government, and the capacity to enter into relations with other states. Above, that are generally accepted as defining a state. It emphasizes that states are juridically equal, enjoy the same rights, and have equal capacity in their exercise. Non-intervention, it asserts that states should not intervene in the internal or external affairs of other states. And recognition of a state by other states is seen as accepting its personality and rights under international law. So I guess if you're not recognizing Palestine as a state, you're basically saying that you don't recognize its personality and its rights under international law. That's basically what you're saying. And if you are going to recognize it, then you are recognizing it as personality and rights, international law. But as we heard, there are criteria to recognizing Palestine as a state, at least put out by Mark Carney. Mainly, there has to be free elections in 2026, I understand, a demilitarized state, and this is Gaza and the West Bank. Forget we're talking with the PA, Palestinian Authority, who are in the West Bank right now. And Hamas has no future role in any government of Palestine at all. These are the criteria, which makes no sense. If you recognize, and I think Earl Braun is going to say something to this effect. If you're going to recognize in September that Palestine is a state, and the elections are going to be in 2026, so it's like, I think Earl Braun calls it a promissory note. Like, do you actually believe Hamas is going to promise, or the Palestinian Authority, that's what we're dealing with. You actually believe that the Palestinian Authority is going to agree. You don't know. You don't know if they're going to agree to any of these terms. And you don't know that Hamas is going to leave Gaza. I know Israel is doing their very best to level Gaza and make it unlivable, but you don't know. You don't know what's going to happen. So you can't make these kind of promissory note statements. Yes, we're going to do this. We'll recognize you as a state. As long as you do this in a year or in 6 months. Mark Carney, this was a dumb statement to make, a dumb move.
The four major criteria, and it's doubtful that any of them are met. And ultimately, we have to ask, is this going to save lives? Is this going to make the situation better? Is this going to move towards a settlement? Who are the people or the organizations that appear to benefit most? And at the moment, more than likely, Hamas is the one that is applauding the loudest. They are likely to become more unwilling to reach kind of settlement, to demilitarize, to vacate the governorship, if you may call that, of Gaza. Let us not forget that Hamas has been designated as a terrorist organization by almost every major democratic state. And they have also declared that whatever the settlement is, Gaza cannot have a role. Well, this may well strengthen Hamas.
Okay, so you don't believe this would benefit the Palestinian people in any way?
The intention perhaps maybe to benefit the Palestinian people, but if Hamas is more unwilling to release the hostages, to reach a ceasefire agreement, and this is the indication, then it's hard to see how this will benefit the people who are suffering both in Gaza and and in Israel. And this is why, if you look at, let's see what the British are saying, their proposal to recognize gives Israel certain incentives to do more in the delivery of food aid, in the delivery of fuel, in reaching a settlement, because then they say, well, then we would not go to something that is a premature recognition. There's no such conditionality in real terms in the case of Canada. And so the Palestinian Authority, which is led by Mahmoud Abbas, has been so utterly corrupt, has made so many promissory, given so many promissory notes, none of which have been delivered on, that this is something that can be questioned even by those who are the most avid supporters of a two-state solution, those who may wish to see a Palestinian state, because it doesn't seem to move the needle in the right direction. Anything that really strengthens Hamas, that rewards terrorism, cannot be viewed as something that is helpful to the Palestinian people who have long suffered under Hamas, or to Israel, which had been subjected to the worst kind of possible massacre and atrocities on October 7, 2023.
Right. So there you hear it. Mr. Brown has basically outlined that this helps no one. It emboldens Hamas to hold on to the hostages. If Hamas's plan was to have everyone, be sympathetic to the plight of the Palestinian people, and most of us are, obviously, when we see what's happening there, then they're being successful. But we can't just make decisions based on emotion. This was an emotional response to what is happening to the Palestinian people. Let's just recognize Palestine as a state. Well, how's that helping the Palestinian people? It's not. Like, I don't understand. Like, who's advising him? And then, of course, it's not helping the Israeli people. Like, Hamas is just emboldened to hold on to the hostages. Let's see what else we can get out of the the rest of the world. Let's see what else we can get.
So the Prime Minister did attach conditions to this recognition, specifically that Hamas has no future role in a Palestinian government. So are you saying this is an unrealistic expectation?
Well, let me turn the discussion around, if I may. Canada, let's see, recognizes a Palestinian state in September of this year. The elections are supposed to take place in 2026. Demilitarization, the exclusion of Hamas are all to take place in the future as a promise, not as an ironclad commitment, and not really as a condition prior to recognition. What happens if these commitments are not met by the Palestinian Authority? Would the Prime Minister of Canada be prepared to say, well, if these are not met in 2026, we in Canada will unrecognize a Palestinian state? Is that on the table? Has the Prime Minister been asked that question?
Okay, interesting. Well, Washington and Tel Aviv have both slammed this decision. Could it strain Canada's relationships with key allies?
It may be straining relations certainly with the United States. Germany, which is the biggest economy, most important power in Europe, is not moving ahead. We are trying to build strong relations with Europe.
Yeah. Again, so he made this announcement before August 1st, and then we got slammed with 35% tariffs on the non-CUSMA product going into the US, right? So obviously it affected the US. We're trying to make deals with Europe because we're trying to diversify our economy, make it more diversified so we're not affected so much by the whims of the US. And this, we may be making some issues there as well. But did he talk to anyone? Did he talk to our allies? Mark Carney, what are you doing? So many people think that Mark Carney is trying to harm Canada. And this is just playing right into that narrative, Mr. Carney, that you are trying to harm Canada. You're not trying to bring Canada down for some reason. And this just plays into that narrative.
Italy hasn't moved so far. So it may indeed not only strain relations with these allies, but also if this recognition is going to go ahead in September, and then we see what sadly is likely to happen, that the Palestinian Authority will not deliver on it, what will happen to Canada's credibility?
Okay. And is there merit to the argument voiced by Netanyahu and Trump that this move amounts to rewarding Hamas?
The problem is that you don't need to go to what Mr. Trump, who is bombastic and who is difficult to deal with, or with Mr. Netanyahu, who may be heading a government that is not to our liking. This is something that in many ways justifies good logic and good policy. It represents a very fundamental shift in Canadian policy, which was that there would be no recognition until there is a negotiated settlement between Israel and the Palestinian people. So to have that kind of dramatic shift, one needs to be very, very careful that the desired results will come about. And given the lineup of the Palestinian Authority, given the fact that Hamas is loudly welcoming these moves to recognition while they are holding and starving hostages, and they don't seem to be negotiating in good faith, it is hard to see how this is moving in the right direction. So we don't need to go to leaders who may not be well liked to question whether this is a wise move, and most importantly, to ask who ultimately benefits from this.
Well said, Mr. Oral Braun. Ultimately, Mark Carney made a big mistake. One, announcing when he did that he's going to recognize Palestine as a state in September was a big mistake, because then affected the trade deal that we were coming up with the U.S. This affects our key allies. Number two, we're trying to diversify our economy and putting a check in the people that we're trying to make trade deals with, whether it's the U.S., whether it's Europe. It's not good policy. Number three, this doesn't help the Palestinian people at all. It doesn't help the Palestinian people. Like, in what way does it? I mean, maybe you can make that argument that it does. I'm waiting to hear it. I'm waiting to hear it. And it doesn't help the Israelis as well. Like, how does it? How does making the announcement now help? And then, I mean, number four, those promissory notes that you put in that demilitarized Palestine, elections must be held. Hamas has no place in a Palestinian government. What if those things don't happen? And can you believe that Mahmoud Abbas is going to achieve that? The PA was kicked out of Gaza by Hamas. I mean, if Hamas is being helped by Iran, then what do you think, the PA is going to be strong as Hamas? They were kicked out. Makes zero sense. Anyway, guys, what do you think? Like, do you agree that Mark Carney should make this announcement now? Was it just dumb? Does this play into the narrative that Mark Carney is trying to bring Canada down for some reason? Who knows what that is? I'm going to hear you guys in the comments. I'd really be interested to hear. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye-bye.